"You're embarrassing me in front of my real family." Those words came from my daughter Sophia at her graduation party last month. She just inherited $28 million and decided her mechanic father was no longer worthy of her new status. What Sophia didn't know was that I'd been hiding the truth about who I really was for 22 years, and her inheritance came with conditions she'd just violated in the most public way possible. I simply smiled, adjusted my oil-stained overalls, and watched as my daughter destroyed her own life with her next sentence. See, Sophia thought she knew everything about money and power. She was about to learn the difference between inherited wealth and earned respect. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Because this story starts 22 years ago when I made a decision that would change everything, including how a $28 million inheritance could disappear in 72 hours. My name is Alex Thompson, and for the past 4 years, my daughter Sophia has treated me like a second-class citizen in my own family. It started small. At her college graduation 2 years ago, she seated me with the maintenance staff instead of at the family table. When I asked why, she said, "Dad, you'll be more comfortable with people who understand your situation." My situation? I'm a garage mechanic. I drive a 2015 Chevy Silverado with 180,000 miles on it. I wear grease-covered Timberland boots that cost $280, though Sophia never bothered to notice the price tag. To her, I was just the guy who showed up to family events with oil under his fingernails. The pattern got worse after she married Ethan Harrington last year. Ethan comes from old Manhattan money. His family owns a chain of high-end art galleries. At Thanksgiving dinner, Sophia actually apologized to Ethan's parents for my calloused hands when I passed the turkey. She said, and I quote, "Dad spent his whole life working on engines. It shows." Sophia's mother, Laura, died 5 years ago, leaving behind what I thought was a modest life insurance policy. Turns out, Laura had family money I never knew about. Old money, the kind that comes with lawyers and trust funds and very specific rules. When Sophia turned 26 last year, she inherited $28 million, $23 million in a trust fund plus $5 million immediate cash. Overnight, my daughter went from middle class to multi-millionaire. That's when she bought the Manhattan loft for $2.5 million. That's when she started shopping at stores, where a handbag costs more than most people's rent. And that's when she decided her mechanic father was a liability to her new image. The inheritance came with requirements, though. Sophia had to donate $400,000 annually to charity. She had to maintain what the legal documents called respectful relationships with surviving family members, and she had to submit annual reports proving both conditions were met. Sophia focused on the money. She ignored the fine print. Last month, she joined the exclusive Soho Art Club. Membership fee $45,000 annually. She wanted to network with her kind of people. Her words, not mine. That's where she met the Beaumont family. Victor Beaumont owns a hedge fund worth $700 million. His wife Elena chairs 4 different cultural foundations. Their son Lucas just graduated from Yale Law School. Sophia was desperate to impress them, and apparently having a father who shows up in work clothes wasn't part of that plan. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Sophia invited me to brunch at the art club. I thought maybe we could repair our relationship. Instead, she handed me a business card for a personal stylist. "Dad, I need you to understand something," she said, not looking me in the eye. "My life has changed. The people I associate with now, they have certain expectations." I looked at the card. Rachel Cohen, stylist to Manhattan Elite, $450 per session. What exactly are you asking me to do, Sophia? I'm asking you to get some help. Learn how to dress appropriately. Maybe take a class on social etiquette. You could even say you're retired instead of what you actually do. I handed the card back. I'm proud of what I do. Well, I'm not. She said it without hesitation. I've worked too hard to build this new life to have it undermined by someone who doesn't understand the rules. The rules? As if respect was something you could buy at Saks Fifth Avenue. I should have walked away then. Instead, I made one last attempt. Sophia, I've been your father for 27 years. Doesn't that count for something? She looked around the art club dining room, making sure nobody was listening. Then she leaned forward and whispered, "Not anymore, Dad, not in my world." That conversation happened on August 15th, exactly 12 days before her graduation party. The party where everything changed. Let me tell you what I stood to lose if I stayed silent. First, my relationship with my only child. Sophia and I weren't close anymore. but she was still my daughter. I'd raised her alone after Laura died, taught her to swim, helped with science projects every night for 10 years, drove her to her first job interview. All of that history was about to be erased because I didn't fit her new lifestyle. Second, my reputation. Word travels fast in Manhattan. If Sophia continued telling people I was an embarrassment, it would affect more than just family gatherings. It would affect my work relationships, my friendships, my standing in our community. But the biggest loss would be my self-respect. I'd spent 22 years building something I was proud of. I wasn't about to let anyone, even my own daughter, tear that down without consequences. Here's what Sophia didn't know about her inheritance. The money came from Laura's grandmother, Victoria Hale. Victoria was old Boston money, the kind of family that built their fortune in the 1900s and never forgot their values. Victoria lived through the stock market crash. She understood the difference between money and character. When Victoria drafted her will in 2008, she included very specific language about family loyalty. Section 6, Clause 3 of the inheritance document stated that beneficiaries must maintain respectful and supportive relationships with all surviving family members to retain access to funds. Section 11, Clause 5 was even more specific. Any public disrespect, humiliation, or rejection of family members will result in immediate review and potential revocation of benefits. Patricia Reed, Laura's family attorney, had explained these conditions to Sophia when she inherited. Patricia made sure Sophia understood that the money wasn't just a gift, it was a responsibility. Sophia signed the documents. She agreed to the terms. Then she promptly forgot about them. What Sophia also didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything. Every insult, every public humiliation, every moment she chose her new social status over basic human decency. I had text messages where she told her friends I was just a mechanic who didn't understand refined people. I had photos from events where she literally introduced me to people as the staff. I had voice recordings from our art club conversation where she said she wasn't proud of what I do. Patricia Reed had given me her business card at Laura's funeral 5 years ago. She'd said, "Alex, if you ever need anything, call me. Laura always spoke highly of you." I'd kept that card in my wallet for 5 years without using it, but after the art club brunch I finally made the call. "Patricia, this is Alex Thompson, Laura's husband." "Alex, how are you? How's Sophia adjusting to the inheritance?" "That's actually why I'm calling. I think we need to talk." Patricia reviewed the documentation I'd gathered. Text messages, photos, audio recordings. A clear pattern of behavior spanning 4 years, but escalating dramatically since Sophia inherited. "Alex, I have to ask, do you want to pursue this? Because once we start the review process, there's no going back. If the inheritance committee finds that Sophia violated the family respect clauses, she loses everything. All 28 million. I thought about Sophia at age 6 crying because kids at school made fun of my greasy uniform on Parent Day. I taught her that what matters isn't what you wear or how much money you have. It's how you treat people. Somewhere along the way, she'd forgotten that lesson. "Patricia, I don't want her money. I never have. But I won't be treated like I'm worthless because of how I make a living." Then we proceed. "But Alex, Sophia will get one final chance to comply with the inheritance terms. If she publicly acknowledges and respects your role in her life within 72 hours of notification, the committee will consider the matter resolved." One final chance. That seemed fair. What happened next would determine whether Sophia kept her $28 million or lost everything, because she valued status over family. The test would come at her graduation party. 150 guests from Manhattan society, the perfect stage for Sophia to either repair our relationship or destroy it completely. I had no idea which choice she'd make, but I knew the consequences would be permanent. The graduation party was scheduled for August 27th, exactly 2 weeks away. Patricia prepared the legal paperwork. I pressed my best work shirt and polished my boots. Time to see what my daughter valued more, her inheritance or her integrity. The Soho Art Club sits on Broadway like a monument to new money. Glass walls, modern sculptures, and the kind of quiet that only comes from wealth so fresh it still needs to prove itself. Sophia had reserved the rooftop terrace for her graduation party. 150 guests, $40,000 budget. Everything had to be perfect for her debut into Manhattan society. I arrived at 7 p.m. wearing my best clothes, dark pants, blue button-down shirt, and my polished work boots. Not fancy, but clean and respectful. Sophia met me at the entrance wearing a $10,000 Vera Wong dress. Her smile was rehearsed. Her hug was stiff. Dad, you came. Of course I came. It's your graduation party. She looked me up and down and I saw her lips tighten. We need to talk before you meet anyone important. She guided me to a corner near the bar, away from the arriving guests. Dad, I need you to understand something tonight. What's that? These people are potential collaborators. Ethan's family has connections throughout New York. The Beaumonts represent $700 million in investments. Congratulations. What does that have to do with me? Sophia glanced around, making sure no one was listening. It has to do with how you present yourself, what you say, how you position your career. My career? Your job, Dad. Maybe tonight you could say you're in automotive consulting or fleet management. Something that sounds more what? Professional. I kept my voice level. I am a mechanic. I fix cars worth millions. I supervise repairs for entire fleets. That is professional. That's not what these people will hear. What will they hear? Sophia's voice dropped to a whisper. They'll hear blue-collar manual labor. Not our kind of people. Our kind of people. You know what I mean. I did know what she meant. And that was the problem. Before I could respond, a couple approached us. The man was distinguished, grey-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's yearly salary. The woman was graceful, with the kind of jewelry that comes from generations of wealth. Sophia. The woman air-kissed both of Sophia's cheeks. The party looks exquisite. Elena, Victor, I'm so glad you could make it. Sophia's voice changed completely, higher, more polished. I'd like you to meet my father. I extended my hand. Alex Thompson. Nice to meet you. Victor Beaumont shook my hand with the grip of someone who'd never touched a wrench. Victor Beaumont. And what line of work are you in, Alex? This was Sophia's moment. Her chance to either respect who I was or continue the pattern of embarrassment. She hesitated for exactly 4 seconds. Then, Dad's in consulting. Automotive consulting. Not mechanics, consulting. Victor nodded approvingly. Excellent. What kind of consulting? Corporate? Logistics. Sophia jumped in before I could answer. Dad works on high-end projects. Very intricate, lots of components. Technically true. Completely misleading. Fascinating, Elena said. We're always looking for reliable consultants. Perhaps we should schedule a meeting sometime. I looked at Sophia. She was smiling, pleased with herself for navigating the conversation successfully. Actually, I said, I should clarify something. Sophia's eyes widened. Dad, I'm not in consulting. I'm a mechanic. I repair vehicles. High-end ones, but still I get my hands dirty. The temperature in our little circle dropped 10 degrees. Victor's handshake had been firm. Now his smile became polite but distant. I see. Well, that's solid work. Elena nodded with the kind of enthusiasm people use when discussing distant relatives. How admirable. Skilled trades are so essential. They excused themselves within 45 seconds. Sophia waited until they were out of earshot. Then she grabbed my arm. What was that? That was honesty. That was sabotage. No, Sophia, that was me refusing to lie about who I am. Do you have any idea what you just did? Victor Beaumont could fund Ethan's next gallery expansion. Helena oversees the Metropolitan Museum's donor board. They donate millions every year. And they can't do that if they know I fix cars for a living. They can't do that if they think we're not cultured enough for their circles. We're our family. Dad, when you embarrass yourself, you embarrass all of us. I felt something shift inside me, a line being crossed. Sophia, let me ask you something. When did I become an embarrassment? Dad, please don't make this difficult. When exactly did the man who raised you become someone you're ashamed of? I'm not ashamed. Then what are you? She looked around the terrace at the glass and sculptures and carefully dressed people sipping wine. I'm trying to build something here. A life, a reputation, connections that matter. And you don't fit into that. Not the way you present yourself. The way I present myself or the way I actually am. Sophia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at me. Dad, we can talk about this later. I need to greet more guests. No, we can't talk about this later. We're talking about it now. Dad, please. Not here. Where then? At another brunch where you hand me business cards for stylists? At another family dinner where you apologize for my calloused hands. People were starting to notice. Sophia's perfect party was developing a crack. You're being dramatic. I'm being honest. Something you seem to have trouble with lately. Sophia's voice got sharp. Fine, you want honesty. Here's honesty. I've worked hard to get where I am. I'm not going to let anyone, including you, drag me down. Drag you down, make me look less than what I've become. And there it was, the truth she'd been dancing around for months. I wasn't her father anymore. I was a liability. The party continued around us, but something had changed. Sophia kept glancing at me like I was a bomb that might explode at any moment. I excused myself to get some air on the rooftop edge. That's when my phone rang. Mr. Thompson, this is Lisa from the office. Sorry to call during your family event. I lowered my voice. What's going on, Lisa? The Miami expansion team needs approval for the new supplier contracts, and the board meeting for next Wednesday has been moved to Friday morning. Should I confirm your attendance? Yes, confirm for Friday and approve the Miami contracts. We're ahead of schedule. Perfect. Also, Bloomberg called about the interview for next month's automotive industry feature. Should I schedule it? I glanced back through the terrace doors. Sophia was laughing with a group of women, her crisis from 5 minutes ago apparently forgotten. Schedule it for the week after next. And Lisa? Yes, sir. Make sure they spell the company name correctly this time. Apex Auto Group, not Thompson. Absolutely. Have a good evening, Mr. Thompson. I hung up and turned around. Sophia was standing behind me. Who was that? Work. Work calls you at night on weekends sometimes. Sophia frowned. What kind of mechanic gets calls from Bloomberg? The kind who has responsibilities you don't understand? Try me, I almost told her then. Almost explained that Apex Auto Group employed 12,000 people across 10 states. Almost mentioned that we'd revolutionized the electric vehicle market over the past decade. Instead, I said, it's complicated. Dad, you fix engines. How complicated can it be? Before I could answer, Ethan Harrington approached with another couple. Ethan was polished, charismatic, and had the kind of assurance that comes from never worrying about bills. Alex, there you are. I want you to meet Julian and Victoria Lang. Julian runs Lang Motors. They're one of the biggest luxury car dealers on the East Coast. Julian was about my age with weathered hands and a knowing smile. A man who'd clearly worked his way up in the auto industry. Alex Thompson. I shook his hand. Nice to meet you. Pleasure's mine. Ethan tells me you're in autos. That's right. What kind of work? Repairs? Sales? Sophia tensed beside me. Here we go again. Repairs mostly. Engines, transmissions, high-performance vehicles. Julian's eyes lit up. No kidding. Which shop? Apex Auto Group. Julian's expression changed completely. Apex Auto, you work for Alex Turner. I do, man. That guy's a visionary. Built that company from a single garage into a $2.8 billion empire. I've been trying to partner with Apex for 3 years. Their reputation's unmatched. Sophia was staring at me with a strange expression. Actually, Julian continued, Apex just landed the contract for the new EV charging network in New York. $700 million project. Biggest auto infrastructure deal in the city's history. I heard about that, Ethan said. Wasn't there some buzz about the innovation process? Julian laughed. Only because Apex's tech is so advanced. Faster repairs, cheaper parts. Revolutionary stuff. Alex Turner's a genius. I stayed quiet, letting Julian talk. I heard Turner started the company 22 years ago, Victoria Lang added. Self-made billionaire. Forbes ranked him in the top 250 wealthiest Americans last year. Sophia was looking at me like she'd never seen me before. Dad, she said slowly. How long have you worked for Apex Auto? A long time. How long exactly? Before I could answer, Patricia Reed appeared at my elbow. She was carrying a leather briefcase and wearing the kind of expression lawyers get when they have urgent business. Alex, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to talk. Sophia looked between Patricia and me, confusion growing on her face. Dad, who is this? This is Patricia Reed, your mother's attorney. I know who she is. Why is she here? Patricia smiled politely. I'm here about your inheritance, Sophia. There are some matters we need to discuss. The blood drained from Sophia's face. Patricia Reed had perfect timing. She always did. Sophia, perhaps we could find somewhere private to talk. No, Sophia's voice was sharp. Whatever you need to say, you can say it here. We were standing on the rooftop now with the city lights glittering below us. A few other guests had wandered over, but they were far enough away to give us privacy. Very well. Patricia opened her briefcase. Sophia, I'm here because there have been some concerns raised about your compliance with the inheritance terms. What concerns? The family respect clauses, specifically Section 6, Clause 3 and Section 11, Clause 5. Sophia looked confused. I don't understand. The clauses requiring you to maintain respectful relationships with surviving family members. I have respectful relationships. Patricia glanced at me, then back at Sophia. Unfortunately, that's not what the evidence suggests. What evidence? Documentation spanning the past 4 years, showing a pattern of public disrespect toward your father. Sophia's face went white. Who provided this documentation? That's confidential. What matters is that the Inheritance Review Committee has serious concerns about your compliance. The what committee? The committee established by your great-grandmother's will to oversee inheritance compliance. 3 attorneys, 2 family advisors, and 1 independent mediator. Nobody told me about any committee. It's outlined in Section 14 of the documents you signed. The committee has the authority to review beneficiary behavior and, if necessary, revoke inheritance privileges. Sophia looked like she'd been hit by a bus. Revoke? Complete forfeiture of funds, both the trust and the cash disbursement. You can't do that. Actually, we can. And we will if the behavior continues. What behavior? I haven't done anything wrong. Patricia pulled out a manila folder. Would you like me to read some examples? Sophia glanced around the rooftop. More guests were wandering over, drawn by the tension in our voices. Not here. Then where? Because, Sophia, this conversation is happening tonight, whether you want it to or not. That's when Sophia made her fatal mistake. Instead of finding a private place to talk, instead of listening to what Patricia had to say, instead of taking responsibility for her actions, Sophia decided to double down. You know what? Fine. Let's do this right here because I'm tired of everyone acting like I'm the problem. She turned to face the growing crowd of guests who'd gathered on the rooftop. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to share something with you all. Patricia tried to stop her. Sophia, I strongly advise. No, I'm done being advised. I'm done being told how to live my life by people who don't understand what I've achieved. The entire rooftop went quiet. Even the party sounds from inside seemed to fade. My father thinks I should be grateful for his contributions to my life. My mother's attorney thinks I should follow rules written by dead people who never met me. She was spiraling now, her voice getting louder and more shrill. But here's what nobody seems to understand. I've built something here. I've created a life worth living. I've surrounded myself with people who understand success, who appreciate excellence, who know the difference between achievement and greasy hands. The crowd was getting uncomfortable. This wasn't cocktail party conversation anymore. My father wants respect. Fine, I'll give him the respect he's earned. She turned to look directly at me. Dad, you're a mechanic. You've been a mechanic your entire life. You drive a run-down truck. You wear work boots to formal events, and you have no idea how to conduct yourself in refined company. The silence was deafening. I appreciate that you raised me after Mom died. I really do, but that doesn't mean I have to spend the rest of my life apologizing for where I came from. Patricia was shaking her head slowly. And if honoring some dusty inheritance clause means I have to pretend that fixing cars is equivalent to building a real career, then maybe I don't want the inheritance at all. She looked around at the crowd of shocked faces. Actually, you know what? I don't need the inheritance. I've got Ethan. I've got my new life. I've got everything I actually want. So if the committee wants to take their $28 million and give it to someone else, they can go right ahead. She turned back to me one final time. Dad, you're no longer welcome in my life. Not at my home, not at my events, not in my social circle. I'm done being embarrassed by you. The crowd stood frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke until Julian Lang stepped forward. Sophia, I think you should know something about your father. Julian, don't, I started to say. No, Alex, she needs to hear this. Julian addressed the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what family drama we just witnessed, but I do know this. Alex Thompson isn't just a mechanic. Sophia rolled her eyes. Julian, please don't try to make this. Alex Thompson is Alex Turner. He's the founder and CEO of Apex Auto Group. The silence that followed was absolute. Apex Auto Group is a $2.8 billion company. Alex employs 12,000 people. His company revolutionized the auto repair and EV industry, including the systems powering half the luxury cars in New York. Sophia's face went from white to gray. Alex Turner is ranked number 198 on the Forbes billionaire list. His personal net worth is estimated at $1.9 billion. You could hear a pin drop. Oh, and Sophia, that $28 million inheritance you just rejected. Your father could buy and sell it 25 times over before breakfast tomorrow. Julian looked around at the stunned crowd, then back at Sophia. So, when you say he's just a mechanic who doesn't understand refined company, well, I think you might want to reconsider that assessment. Sophia was staring at me like I was a stranger. Dad, I looked at my daughter, this person I'd raised and loved and sacrificed for, standing in her $10,000 dress, surrounded by the Manhattan elite she'd worked so hard to impress. Yes, Sophia, is that true? I nodded slowly. Every word. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to love me for who I am, not what I have. Sophia's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Patricia Reed cleared her throat. Sophia, in light of your public statements tonight, I'm afraid the Inheritance Committee has no choice but to proceed with immediate forfeiture. Proceedings. Wait, you have 72 hours to vacate the premises, purchased with inheritance funds, and return all assets to the estate. But I didn't. No. Ignorance of your father's wealth doesn't excuse your behavior toward him. The inheritance terms were clear. Maintain respectful relationships with surviving family members. You've done the opposite, and you did it publicly in front of witnesses. Patricia closed her briefcase. The committee will convene Monday morning. The forfeiture will be finalized by Wednesday. She handed Sophia a business card. If you'd like to contest the decision, you can call my office. Though given tonight's performance, I wouldn't recommend it. Patricia turned to me. Alex, the committee will need you to sign the transfer documents. Can you come by the office Thursday morning? I'll be there. Sophia stood frozen as Patricia walked away. The crowd began to disperse, heading back inside to salvage what was left of the party. Finally, Sophia found her voice. Dad, wait. We need to talk. I looked at her one last time. No, Sophia. We really don't. I walked toward the elevator, leaving my daughter standing alone on the rooftop in her $10,000 dress, having just lost $28 million because she was too proud to respect the man who raised her. Actions have consequences, even for inherited money. The parking garage was quiet except for the echo of my footsteps. I'd made it halfway to my truck when I heard Sophia's heels clicking rapidly behind me. Dad, please wait. I stopped but didn't turn around. Dad, I need to understand what just happened up there. Now I turned. Sophia looked smaller somehow, despite the expensive dress and jewelry. The confidence she'd worn like armor all evening had cracked. What do you need to understand, Sophia? Are you really Alex Turner? The billionaire? I'm Alex Thompson. I've always been Alex Thompson. Turner is just the name I use for business. Why? Privacy, protection. When you're worth what I'm worth, people treat you differently. Sophia shook her head like she was trying to wake up from a dream. I don't understand. If you're worth billions, why do you live like what? Like a normal person? Like someone who doesn't have money? Sophia, I've had money for 18 years. I've been the same person the entire time. The only thing that's changed is your perception. But the house, I own the entire neighborhood. I live in that house because it's where I raised you. Where your mother and I were happy. The truck. I own 15 vehicles. I drive the truck because I like it. It's reliable. Sophia leaned against a concrete pillar, looking like she might faint. Dad, God, the things I've said to you. Yes, you have. I didn't know. That's the problem, Sophia. You thought you knew everything about me, but you never bothered to ask questions. You made assumptions based on appearances. But why didn't you tell me? Why let me think you were struggling financially? I walked closer, keeping my voice gentle but firm. When did I ever say I was struggling? You didn't have to say it. The house, the truck, the clothes? Sophia, I've never complained about money. I've never asked you for money. I've never acted like money was a problem. But you live so modestly. And what's wrong with that? Sophia didn't have an answer. Let me ask you something, I continued. If you'd known about the money 4 years ago, would you have treated me differently? Sophia opened her mouth, then closed it. Would you have been proud of me for what I'd built? Or would you have been proud of me for what I could buy you? Dad, would you have introduced me as your father who worked hard and raised you well? Or as your father who could invest in Ethan's galleries? Sophia's eyes filled with tears. I don't know. I do. You would have treated me exactly the same way you treated the inheritance, like a thing to be displayed when convenient and hidden when embarrassing. That's not fair, isn't it? Tonight, when Julian told everyone about Apex Auto, what was your first emotion? Pride in my accomplishments or excitement? About what it meant for your social status? Sophia didn't answer, which was answer enough. Sophia, for 22 years I've built something I'm proud of. Not just the money, the company, the jobs, the innovations. I've employed thousands of people. I've developed EV tech that's changing the world. I've donated $400 million to charities. $400 million. The youth center where you volunteered in high school, the expansion that opened last year, I funded that anonymously. Sophia stared at me. Why anonymously? Because charity isn't about recognition. It's about helping people. We stood in silence for a moment. The muffled sounds of the party continued above us. Dad, what happens now? Now you face the consequences of your choices. The inheritance, it's gone, Sophia. Patricia wasn't bluffing. The committee will meet Monday, and by Wednesday you'll have lost every penny. Can't you stop them? I won't stop them. Why not? Because actions have consequences. You spent 4 years treating me like garbage, culminating in tonight's performance. The inheritance terms were clear and you violated them spectacularly. But I didn't know about your money. Sophia, stop. The inheritance terms didn't say you had to respect me because I was wealthy. They said you had to respect me because I'm your father. Sophia slumped against the pillar. What am I going to do? What you should have done years ago. Figure out who you are without money defining you. The loft was purchased with inheritance money. You have 72 hours. My engagement to Ethan might survive if it's based on love instead of financial convenience. Dad, please. Can't we work something out? I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. The expensive dress, the jewelry, the desperation in her eyes as she realized her new life was built on sand. Sophia, I've spent 22 years working to build something meaningful. You've spent the last 4 years tearing down the most important relationship in your life because you were embarrassed by honest work. I can change. Can you? Or will you just pretend to change until you get what you want? I can really change. Prove it. How? Start by answering one question honestly. If I were still just a mechanic, no billions, no empire, no Forbes ranking, would you want me in your life? Sophia hesitated. That hesitation told me everything I needed to know. I thought so. I started walking toward my truck again. Dad, wait. Let me try again. Ask me again, I stopped. Sophia, it doesn't matter what you say now. What matters is what you've already shown me for 4 years. People can change. Yes, they can. But change has to come from inside, not from desperation. I reached my truck and turned around one final time. Sophia was still standing by the pillar, looking lost. Sophia, I love you. I always will. But love isn't the same as acceptance. I won't accept being treated as less than human because of my job. It wasn't about your job. It was entirely about my job and my clothes and my truck and my house. Everything that made me embarrassing in your new social circle. I opened the truck door. When you figure out how to love people for who they are instead of what they have, call me. Until then, we have nothing to discuss. Dad, goodbye. Sophia. I drove away, leaving my daughter standing alone in the parking garage, finally understanding the difference between wealth and worth. The graduation party continued above us. But for Sophia, it was over. By Wednesday, she'd learned exactly how much her inheritance was worth compared to the relationship she'd thrown away. Monday morning arrived crisp and clear. I sat in Patricia Reed's conference room, looking out at the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The city I'd helped modernize spread out below us. Roads, charging stations, auto hubs. Most people commuting to work that morning had no idea that Apex Auto Group had built the infrastructure they relied on every day. Patricia entered carrying a stack of documents and wearing the expression of someone who'd spent the weekend dealing with frantic phone calls. Alex, before we begin, I should mention that Sophia called me 15 times yesterday. What did she want? To negotiate? To apologize? To explain? To beg? Patricia sat down across from me. I told her the decision was out of my hands now. Is it completely? The Inheritance Committee convened at 9 a.m. 3 attorneys, 2 family advisors, 1 independent mediator. They reviewed all the documentation. Patricia opened the top file. Text messages where Sophia called you just a mechanic to her friends. Photos from events where she introduced you as hired help. Audio recordings from your art club conversation. And of course, Saturday night's public performance. What did they conclude? Unanimous violation of inheritance terms. Complete forfeiture of all funds and assets. She slid a document across the table. This is the official notice. Sophia has 72 hours from this morning to return all assets purchased with inheritance money. The loft, the car, the jewelry, the art club membership, everything. I scanned the legal language. It was thorough and final. What about the $5 million in cash she already spent? She'll need to repay it. If she can't, we'll pursue legal collection. And if she still can't? Bankruptcy, wage garnishment, standard debt collection procedures. Patricia pulled out another document. This is the asset transfer form. Once you sign it, the $28 million reverts to you as the surviving family member. I looked at the paper but didn't pick up the pen. Alex, is there a problem? What happens to the money if I don't sign? It goes into a charitable trust managed by the estate. Victoria Hale specified that if inheritance conditions weren't met and the family declined to reclaim the funds, everything should go to educational charities. I thought about Sophia at 6 years old, excited about Parent Day until kids made fun of my uniform. I thought about teaching her to drive, helping with college applications, walking her down the aisle at her wedding. I thought about Saturday night, watching her choose social status over basic human decency. I won't be taking the money. Patricia looked surprised. Are you sure? It's $28 million, I'm sure. Let it go to the educational charities. That's what Victoria would have wanted. Alex, you're giving up. I'm not giving up anything. I'm making a choice based on principle. Patricia made a note in the file. Very well. The charitable trust will be established by Friday. She pulled out a final document. This is a restraining order application. Given Sophia's persistent phone calls, I thought you might want legal protection from harassment. No restraining order. Alex, she's called my office 38 times since Saturday night. She's still my daughter. If she wants to contact me, she can. Whether I respond is my choice. Patricia gathered the documents. The committee asked me to commend you for your handling of the situation. It would have been easy to use your wealth to intimidate Sophia into compliance. Instead, you let the inheritance terms speak for themselves. The terms were fair. Sophia chose to ignore them. What will you tell people about this? The business community is already buzzing about Saturday night. I'll tell them the truth. My daughter lost her inheritance because she forgot that respect is earned, not bought. Patricia stood to walk me out. Alex, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Do you think Sophia will learn from this? I thought about the question as we walked to the elevator. I hope so. But learning requires accepting responsibility. Sophia spent Saturday night blaming everyone except herself. The elevator doors opened. If she does learn, will you forgive her? I've already forgiven her. But forgiveness doesn't mean pretending the last 4 years didn't happen. What would it take for you to rebuild the relationship? An apology that isn't motivated by money. Recognition that her behavior was wrong, not just inconvenient, and evidence that she understands the difference between wealth and character. The elevator reached the ground floor. Patricia walked me to the lobby. Alex, one last question. Any regrets about not telling Sophia about your wealth earlier? I stepped into the New York morning, thinking about all the ways this story could have played out differently. None. If I'd told her about the money, I never would have learned who she really was. And now you know. Now I know she has a choice to make. She can either figure out how to be proud of herself without putting other people down, or she can spend the rest of her life blaming other people for her problems. Which do you think she'll choose? I got into my truck, rolled down the window and looked back at the building where my daughter's inheritance had just become 38 scholarships for underprivileged students. I guess we'll find out. By Wednesday afternoon, the consequences were real and immediate. Sophia's Mercedes was repossessed at 10:30 a.m. while she was having coffee with Elena Beaumont. The repo company waited politely outside the Manhattan Cafe until she finished her latte, then handed her the paperwork in front of a dozen of Manhattan's most influential patrons. Elena Beaumont called me that evening. Alex, or should I say Mr. Turner, I owe you an apology. No, you don't. Yes, I do. Victor and I judged you based on appearances. We were wrong. You judged me based on information Sophia provided. That's not your fault. Still, we should have been more thoughtful. I could hear the calculation in her voice. Elena Beaumont was smart enough to realize that insulting a billionaire's work clothes might not have been her wisest social move. Elena, you don't need to apologize. You reacted honestly to what you saw. Well, if you're ever interested in supporting cultural foundations, Victor and I would love to discuss opportunities with Apex Auto. I'll keep that in mind. What Elena didn't know was that Apex Auto had been anonymously funding 2 of her foundations. For the past 8 years, I saw no reason to mention it. Thursday morning brought more consequences. Sophia's art club membership was terminated for non-payment. The Manhattan loft went into foreclosure proceedings. Her credit cards were cancelled when the banks discovered her inheritance had been revoked. Ethan Harrington called me Friday afternoon. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Turner, I think we need to talk. About what? About Sophia. About what happened Saturday night. What about it? I need to understand. Is Sophia really going to lose everything? She's already lost everything, Ethan. The question is what she plans to do about it. She's been staying with friends since Tuesday. She can't afford her own place anymore. I'm aware. Mr. Turner, I know Sophia said some terrible things to you, but she's panicking. She doesn't know how to live without money. Then she'll learn. Is there anything? Could you help her just enough to get back on her feet? Why would I do that? Because she's your daughter. I thought about that for a moment. Ethan, let me ask you something. If Sophia didn't have the inheritance, if she was just a normal person working a normal job, would you still want to marry her? The silence stretched longer than it should have. I love Sophia. That's not what I asked, more silence. I see. Ethan, I think you and Sophia both need to figure out what you actually value in relationships. Mr. Turner, good luck, Ethan. I hung up. By Monday, the engagement was off. The most interesting call came from Julian Lang. Alex, I wanted to apologize for outing you Saturday night. That wasn't my place. You did what you thought was right. Still, I know you kept your identity private for good reasons. I did. But Sophia forced the situation. How are you handling the publicity? I saw the article in the Wall Street Journal this morning. I hadn't seen the article yet. What did it say? Auto billionaire's daughter loses inheritance after public family feud. They got most of the facts right, surprisingly. Any comment from Sophia? She declined to be interviewed. Smart move considering. Julian paused. Alex, I've been thinking about what happened. Your daughter spent years being embarrassed by honest work, then lost millions because she couldn't show basic respect. There's a lesson there. What lesson is that? Our character matters more than circumstances. Always has, always will. The biggest consequence came the following week. Sophia showed up at my house. I found her sitting on my front porch Wednesday evening when I got home from work. She looked different, smaller somehow. She was wearing jeans and a sweater instead of designer clothes. Her hair was in a simple bun. Hi, Dad. Sophia, can we talk? I sat down on the porch steps beside her. What do you want to say? I want to apologize. For what, specifically? For treating you like you were worthless. For being ashamed of honest work. For caring more about what other people thought than about the man who raised me. I listened without interrupting. I want to apologize for Saturday night, for the things I said in front of all those people, for choosing my pride over our relationship. She was crying now, but quietly. I want to apologize for 4 years of being a terrible daughter. Sophia, I'm not done. I want to apologize for not knowing you at all, for never asking about your work, your dreams, your accomplishments, for assuming that because you didn't show off, you didn't have anything to show. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. And I want to apologize for only caring about your feelings after I found out about your money. We sat in silence for a few minutes. What are you going to do now? I asked. I don't know. I've never had to figure out how to live without money. What do you want to do? I want to learn how to be someone I can respect. I looked at my daughter. really looked at her for the first time in years. That's a good start. 5 months later, Sophia called me on a Thursday afternoon. Dad, I got a job. What kind of job? Receptionist at a non-profit. It's entry level, but they help kids from low-income families get into college. How do you feel about it? Nervous, excited, thankful someone gave me a chance despite everything. Sophia had spent the fall learning how to live on a budget. She shared a tiny apartment with a roommate in Queens. She took the subway to work. She cooked her own meals and shopped at discount stores. Dad, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you think I'll ever stop feeling ashamed of how I treated you? I hope not. Really? Shame can be useful if it motivates you to be better. The question is whether you'll use it as fuel for growth or as an excuse for self-pity. I'm trying to use it for growth. I can see that. She'd been volunteering at a community center on weekends. She'd written letters to the people she'd hurt, taking responsibility without asking for forgiveness. She'd started seeing a counselor to understand why she'd needed others' approval, to feel valuable. Dad, I know I don't have the right to ask this, but do you think we could have dinner sometime? Just us. I thought about the little girl who used to help me tinker in the garage, the teenager who called me every day during her first year away at college, the young woman who'd leaned on me when her first big dream fell apart. I thought about the person she'd become when money made her forget where she came from, and I thought about the person she might become if she learned from her mistakes instead of repeating them. I'd like that. Really? Really? But Sophia, I need you to understand something. What? I'm not the same person I was before Saturday night. And you're not the same person either. We're going to have to figure out what our relationship looks like now. I understand. Do you? I think so. You're not going to pretend the last 4 years didn't happen just because I'm sorry. That's right. And I'm not going to pretend I deserve forgiveness just because I apologized. Also right. We made plans for dinner the following Tuesday. Nothing fancy. Just a chance to see if we could build something new from the pieces of what we'd broken. As I hung up the phone, I realized something important. For the first time in years, I was proud of my daughter. Not for what she had, but for who she was becoming. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. And remember, respect isn't inherited. It's earned one choice at a time.